voters are looking for the country's next leader. Seven candidates for vice president standing side by side
to face the Filipino people.
Filipinos are not that foolish. We are going to do that by taxing the rich.
Kung saan natin dadali ng bayan, doon nating idisenyo ang ating edukasyon.
To make their case.
To explain and defend their positions on public issues.
To be challenged.
Kung susubukan niyo ako, magugulat kayo.
Uunahin natin ang agrikultura at pangingisda.
And to challenge each other.
But more than just telling us what they can do.
Isang batas na nagpapatawag na isang constitutional convention.
Yun din ang gusto namin kasama sa programa namin sa gobyerno. Gawing madisiplina uli ang gobyerno.
It's about how they can do it all during their 6-year term.
And if the need arises,
to be ready to step up as chief executive under the country's presidential line of succession.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a CNN Philippines special presentation, the Filipino Votes Vice Presidential Debate 2022. I'm Rico Hizon.
Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Ako si Ruth Cabal, and welcome to all of you watching on TV and on Facebook. Syempre, Rico, batiin din natin ang ating virtual audience sa ating naglalakihang screens. Marami dyan mula pa sa iba't ibang lugar at malalayong lugar sa Pilipinas. Different industries, different backgrounds. Thank you, Microsoft Philippines, for making this possible.
Nagpapasalamat kami sa inyong lahat for joining us today. And Ruth, we are extremely excited to welcome 7 out of the 9 vice presidential candidates right here at the Quadricentennial Pavilion at the University of Santo Tomas.
UST has been our trusted partner in our debates. In 2016, we had the VP debate. And 2019, di ba? We had our senatorial debate dito rin sa venue na ito. Maraming salamat, UST. We are very much grateful.
And now, Ruth, it is time to welcome our candidates for Vice President of the Republic of the Philippines in alphabetical order. Walden Bello. He's a former Akbayan Party List representative, running mate of Labor leader Leody de Guzman.
Our next candidate, pro-life advocate Rizalito David. Running mate of Dr. Jose Montemayor Jr.
Also with us, economist Manny S.D. Lopez. He is the lone VP candidate without a running mate. 3 candidates, Ruth, are now on stage. We've got 4 more to go. Time to welcome on stage a cardiologist and social media personality, Dr. Willie Ong. He's running alongside Manila Mayor Isko Moreno Domagoso. Our next candidate, Senator Francis Kiko Pangilinan. Running mate of Vice President Leni Robredo.
Also with us, Lawyer Carlos Serapio. He's running alongside businessman Faisal Mangondato.
And our final candidate, Senate President Tito Soto. Running mate of Senator Panfilo Ping Lacson.
Rico, nakaka-excite na makita ang 7 out of 9 vice presidential bets here on stage. 2 are unable to make it. Deputy House Speaker Lito Atienza, originally confirmed, but he recently begged off upon doctor's advice kasi po he had to undergo knee replacement surgery after he suffered an accident. Yung isa pang VP candidate, Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte, declined our invitation. We're keeping their podiums on stage nonetheless.
And Ruth, as with any debate, we have rules. We'll be asking general and specific questions. Your allotted time is 90 seconds or 1 minute and a half to answer these questions. And to be clear, general questions will be answered by all the candidates.
If your name, running mate, or your party is mentioned or alluded to, you can do a rebuttal. Pero para dyan, 1 minute lang po.
And there are monitors in front of you that will serve as your timing device. You'll hear this sound to remind you you have 10 seconds left. When your time is up, you will hear this other sound. And we hope by then, candidates, you will quickly wrap up.
At pakiusap din natin, candidates, ha, please don't talk over each other. We will turn off your mic if you interrupt and let the speaker finish within the allotted time. Kasi mas maganda, Rico, pag tuloy-tuloy yung sagot nila para mas maintindihan sila ng ating mga manonood.
At malalaman ng ating audience at ng ating Filipino electorate ang mga plataforma ng ating mga kandidato. So let's go ahead and begin with your opening statement. It will be your answer to this general question. Vice presidents can be appointed by the president to a cabinet position. If elected, what cabinet position do you prefer and why? Candidates will answer this question in alphabetical order, so we will begin with Walden Bello. Please go ahead, sir.
Well, I would prefer the Department of Finance because it is such a central cabinet position. Talyode and I will have a tax on the top 750 people, billionaires in the country, and this will be for social programs that will go and benefit the vast majority of our people. We are going to legislate job security and higher wages, starting with $750 paid per day. And this is not just out of social justice, but this is also because we want to put purchasing power in the hands of our people to really make a very creative economy. We are going to repeal all those laws that have opened up our economy indiscriminately, thereby destroying our manufacturing and agriculture and forcing our people to go abroad in search of jobs. We are going to legalize divorce and same-sex marriage, and we are going to pull the Philippines from the 17th century to the 21st century. Mayor Sara Duterte, why are you not here to defend your positions? Nganong talawan mangka, Inday?
Rizalito David, it is now your turn.
Dalawang bagay po ang nakikita kong problema ng ating bansa. Ang una ay ang amorality, no? Ang kawalan ng moralidad ng lipunan. At ang kalawa ay yung cynicism ng general public, ang kawalan ng tiwala sa marami nating mga institusyon. Kung ako po'y mahahalal bilang ikalawang Pangulo at pipili ng posisyon sa gobyerno, nais ko na ang Pangulo ay mag-create ng isang komisyon for moral renewal and cultural restoration na aking pong pamumunuan. Yan po ay magkakaroon ng mga programa sa lahat ng institusyon ng ating bayan, lalong-lalo na sa pamahalaan, sa ating mga eskwelahan, pribado man o hindi, at maging ang mga instrumentalities natin, mga local governments, kailangan nating ibalik ang moralidad ng bayan upang tayo'y umunlad. Yun po ang aking nais na gawin kung ako'y magiging ikalawang Pangulo. Marami pong salamat.
Manny Lopez, it's your turn.
Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Ako po si Manny S.D. Lopez, Vice Presidential Candidate of the Labor Party Philippines. Kung ako po ay palarin na maihalal bilang pangalawang Pangulo ng ating mahal na Republika, ang pipiliin ko pong cabinet portfolio will be perhaps as Secretary of the Department of Trade and Industry. Sapagkat ang priority po natin ngayon after this unprecedented pandemic, this crisis that we are facing, we will be facing severe challenges in the coming years. And economic recovery is a must to help uplift the lives of our people. And I have a comprehensive three-pronged agenda to help advance our economic recovery. And this is number one, a new omnibus investment code to make doing business in the country a lot easier. We could attract more investors, we could improve the productivity of our businesses, of our enterprises. At pangalawa po, alam naman natin na maraming nahirapan, especially micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises. And the solution to this is a legal framework to enable them to recover. Yan po at provision of low-interest loans. Marami pong salamat.
We'd like to hear next from Dr. Willie Ong.
Hi. Kamusta po sa ating mga televiewers ng CNN? Pasalamat muna tayo sa CNN paggawa nitong debate. Napakaganda po nitong lugar. Kung kaya po tayo tumakbo, simple lang pandemic po talaga. Dahil sa pandemic talagang nasira yung ekonomiya, trabaho, pati tourism natin. Ang partner ko, si Mayor Isko Moreno, sabi niya, Doc Willie, kung hindi pandemic time, baka hindi ikaw ang tamang Vice President. Pero ngayon, dahil pandemic, kailangan natin maayos. Itong pandemic paulit-ulit. Every 6 months may bago. Alpha, Beta, Delta, Omicron. In 6 months, July, August, hindi natin alam kung ano yung susunod. Kaya depende sa Presidente kung gusto niya ako lagay sa Department of Health, gusto niya ako gawing overview sa health, okay po dito. Kung gusto niya ako tumulong sa ayuda, okay din po sa akin. Parang division of labor po kami ni Mayor Isko. Sabi niya, ikaw bahala, Doc Willie, sa kalusugan. Siya bahala sa pabahay, trabaho, edukasyon, foreign affairs. Kailangan natin magawa ng mga ospital. We need an infectious disease hospital. Doon natin lalagay yung COVID patients. Hindi po ako politiko, doktor po ako, pero nakikita ko paano bilhin yung pinakamagandang gamot sa inyo para mabuhay kayo at inyong mga anak. Salamat po.
Next, may we hear from Senator Francis Pangilinan.
Magandang araw po sa kanilang lahat. Depende po sa ating magiging Pangulo na si President Leni Robredo kung ano ang iaatang niya sa atin. Pero kung ano man ang merong kinalaman sa agrikultura at pangingisda, yun ang ating tatanggapin. Lahat ng mga kandidato ngayon sa pagka-Vice Presidente at sa loob ng 20 taon ng halalan sa ating bansa, ako lang ang kandidato na isinusulong at gagawan ng solusyon at sinisentro ang problema ng gutom, mataas na presyo ng pagkain at agrikultura. Tututukan natin ang alalay at ayuda at tulong sa magsasaka at mangingisda. Bilang dating Food Security Secretary, pinigilan natin tumaas ang presyo ng bigas dahil nilabanan natin ang mga rice cartel at ang smuggling at tinigil natin ang tongpats sa importation ng bigas na nauwi sa savings ng 7.3 billion pesos sa loob lamang ng 2 taon. Yan ang susi sa maayos na suporta sa ating magsasaka at mangingisda, tapat na gobyerno, at makakaasa sila sa atin dito. Kapag buo ang suporta sa magsasaka at mangingisda, dadami ang kanilang ani, dadami ang huli, maganda na ang supply ng pagkain sa ating bansa, bababa ang presyo, mawawala na ang gutom. Yan ang ating tututukan.
Now we would like to hear from Carlos Serapio.
Thank you, CNN, at mabiyayang panahon, Pilipinas. Ang aking pong pipiliin ay batay din sa pipiliin ng aking Pangulo, si Presidente Faisal Mangundato. Kung ano po ay bibigay niyang tungkulin sa akin, iyon po ang aking gagampanan. Datapwat, kung ako'y kanyang tatanungin kung ano ang aking personal na preference, dahil po sa aking academic background, sa aking experience in engaging different leaders and functionaries of different nations, I prefer to take the portfolio of the Department of Foreign Affairs. And in that position, I think the experiences that I have had in doing back-channeling work will provide the kind of background as well as expertise for me to be able to do justice to the position. Kaya po, diyan mahalaga sapagkat tayo nahaharap sa ating ngayong mga relasyon sa iba't ibang bansa, lalo't higit na dito sa ating rehiyon. At ito po ay napakahalaga. Kahit na pa nga ang aming programa ay ang tanging programa ng transisyon. At sa transition po, mahalaga na maunawaan ng ibang bansa kung ano po ang ating patutunguhan na sistema. Salamat po.
Senate President Tito Soto.
Salamat po ng marami. The Dangerous Drugs Board and the Department of Interior and Local Government, I will be able to implement the Dangerous Drugs Act of 2002 completely. Republic Act 9165, of which I was the principal author of, and created the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency. The present situation calls for the attention of government to the problem of drug abuse, not just illegal drugs. Those are two different animals. Kapag ang inasikaso mo lang ay yung supply reduction strategy na enforcement lamang at may kakulangan sa prosecution, you will never solve the problem of illegal drugs. But if you concentrate on prevention and rehabilitation, which is partly the demand reduction strategy that is necessary to combat it, I feel we will be able to complete and implement well the laws that we have passed before.
Ngayong narinig na po natin ang opening statements ng ating mga kandidato, susunod na bubusisiin natin mga mahahalagang issue. And among the top voting issues this 2022 is the COVID-19 pandemic. Paano kaya nila tutugunan yung mga naging epekto ng pandemya sa ating bansa? Aalamin natin yan.
And after the break, we'll have specific questions for two of our senators. We'd like to hear next from Kiko Pangilinan and Tito Soto about the recent Senate Blue Ribbon Committee report on the pharmaceutical controversy. You're watching a CNN Philippines special presentation, The Filipino Votes Vice Presidential Debate 2022. We'll be right back.
Decision day for Filipinos. 18,000 plus seats up for grabs in general elections in just a few more months Among them, the position of Vice President.
And here on stage are 7 of the 9 vice presidential candidates, and they are ready to answer your questions on many issues that matter to each and every one of us. One of them, the COVID-19 pandemic. Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates predicted the COVID-19 outbreak back in 2015. And he has warned yet again about the emergence of more pandemics in the future. Here is our next question. As Vice President, what concrete steps will you take to prepare our country for the next pandemic? Candidates, the more specific your answer, the better. Manny Lopez, we will start off with you.
Thank you very much for this very relevant question. I happen to be a Bill Gates reader and also a veteran advocate of more effective disaster planning and management, among which is pandemic management. Pandemic is something that we have faced in the past, and we will be facing as well in the future. And my general prescription is for a science-based, cost-effective, and pragmatic approach to pandemic management. Because this is a crisis, in our case, of biblical proportions. And accordingly, the general prescription is our bayanihan spirit, our caring for each other. And if I can go into specifics, those especially in the level of decision-making with regards to our pandemic response, mitigation, and recovery strategy, we should make it a point that we have to have policies that specifically address the issues beyond political and commercial interests. Because this is what really bothers our pandemic response. And we could do better. And we could do better by caring more for each other and for caring for our country and our people. Thank you very much.
Tanungin naman po natin ngayon si Senate President Tito Soto.
Treatment, prevention, prophylaxis, I think we should go there. The vaccination program is good. But what do we do after 6 months? After 6 months, we'll ask Congress again for 78 billion para mabili na naman for 100 million Filipinos every 6 months. So I think we should be concentrating more on the prophylaxis. There are many new inventions or discoveries, I should say, in the other parts of the world. Kaya kailangan mas bigyan natin ng diin yung ganito. Siguro dapat bilisan lalo ng FDA ang pag-approve ng mga prophylaxis at saka makakatulong sa prevention sa atin. But of course, the health standards, the health protocols should remain.
Rizalito David, your pandemic response.
Firstly, kailangan magkaroon ng summit para magkaroon ng consensus ang scientific community kung ano nga ba itong magiging pandemya na ito, o in this particular case yung COVID. Ang nangyari po kasi sa atin, kung ano-anong restrictions ang ating ginawa, sa isang banda lamang ng siyensya ang ating pinakinggan. Maraming mga doktor at scientifico na nagsasabing may gamot sa COVID, meron tayong pwedeng gawin, mayroong natural na gamot, at hindi natin kailangan mag-lockdown. Pero dahil ang gobyerno lamang ang nagsagawa ng mga pamamaraan, hindi natin pinakinggan yung mga ibang scientifico at ibang mga doktor. Kaya yan ang nangyari sa atin. Dapat hindi na po maulit yan. Kailangan talaga ng isang national consensus on what to do with COVID and with other pandemic that will hit us in the future. Maraming salamat po.
Kung inyo pong mapapansin, meron kaming 2 types of questions kasi yung nakaraang question na yan, it's a specific question. Ibig sabihin, 1 or 2 or up to 3 candidates lang po ang sasagot. But we also have general questions kung ang saan silang lahat ang sasagot. So, bawat isa po sa inyo ay posibleng matanong ng specific question.
And for a specific question that only one candidate will respond to, we'll need the help of our virtual audience who are behind us right now via a show of hands. Parang botohan ito. And it's to gauge how satisfied our audience is with a candidate's answer. So, to our virtual audience, who are joining us today.
Hello.
Sample lang muna. Hello, everybody. Kamusta po kayo?
Show of hands.
Show of hands, please. Can we ask you to raise your hands?
Katulad ng sinabi ni Rico, parang botohan.
Ayan, parang botohan. Ayan.
Taas ang kamay. Or parang pag
Taas ang
tinatawag,
kamay.
gusto nyo mag-recite sa class. Parang ganun, diba, dito sa UST.
Ayan, maraming salamat, no, for your participation today in this vice presidential debate.
Ngayon naman, we want to ask a specific question to two of our senators regarding the recent... bago natin puntahan yun, no?
Oo.
Kasi binanggit mo pala kanina yung tungkol sa Pharmally.
Correct.
Report.
Meron tayong tanong for Dr. Willie
So
Ong.
bago natin puntahan yun, we go first to Dr. Willie Ong. And this is a specific question for you. Pero kanina po, nabanggit nyo na di ba? Yung pagpili po sa inyo ng inyong running mate na si Mayor Isko Moreno about your medical background. And he said that this will prove very helpful with the government's pandemic response and other health issues. Pero siguro po iniisip na rin ng marami, how about other duties and responsibilities as Vice President that are outside your area of expertise? How do you plan to fulfill them all?
Salamat po. Lahat naman po ng field na kailangan natin aralin, inaaral ko naman po. Ako po isang doktor, cardiologist, 18 years po ako nag-aral. Nagkataon lang talaga nilalaliman ko sa kalusugan. Ito kasi napakahalaga. Lalo na dito sa COVID response, di ba? Alam ko, hirap na yung mga kababayan natin sa lockdown, di alam anong gagawin. Simple lang po Kailangan natin magtayo ng infectious disease hospital. Doon natin lalagay yung mga COVID patients. Hindi pwede sa PGH kasi namamatay yung mga ibang pasyente natin. Kailangan natin magtayo ng Cancer Center of the Philippines. Salamat kay Sen Kiko, kay Tito Sen, na-pass nila yung bayanihan. Kaya lang, bakit hindi nagtayo ng ospital? Kailangan ng magandang gamot para sa COVID. May gamot na po ngayon sa COVID. Paxlovid ang pangalan, darating sa Maynila, na order ni Mayor Isko Moreno, February 27. Napakaganda nito. Sa Amerika, binibigay ito. Hindi ko alam ba't hindi natin bilibili. So yung Remdesivir, Paxlovid, and others na gagawin natin. With other fields, kahit ano paggawa sa akin, okay naman sa akin. Kung sa agriculture, sa DSWD, o sa foreign affairs, okay lang po. Mabilis tayong matuto at gagawin po natin.
Senator S.V. Soto, would you like to respond? May binanggit po si Dr. Willie Ong.
Concerning what
Bakit
topic?
wala pong hospital yung binanggit niyo, sir? Dr. Ong?
Sen, sabi ko lang sana nagtayo tayo ng infectious disease hospital para hindi na ilagay yung COVID patients sa PGH. Kasi nagre-reklamo yung mga doctors na di-displace yung mga cancer patients, yung ooperahan, kaya marami na matay sa atin noong 2021. So pag nakagawa tayo ng separate, at least hindi na ma-overburden yung mga private hospitals. Kasi nagkakahawahan Naghahawa yung COVID sa hindi COVID, kaya hindi tayo makapacheck up, napupuno po agad. I think may tulong kung magtatayo pa tayo ng hospital para hindi tayo magkulang ng hospital bed po, Senator.
Bayanihan 1 was crafted specifically to address the problem of those who will be victims of the lockdown. Victims, I say, na nawalan ng trabaho. Talaga ginawa namin yung Bayanihan 1, and I am the principal author of the measure. I'm sure Senator Francis is very well aware of that. Yung ayuda ang inasikaso namin dun sa Bayanihan 1 because of the possible yung hindi magkakaroon ng trabaho, napakaraming tao, pati transport sector, at yung kailangan pambili ng wala sa budget yung biglang ng 2020, napasa na namin yung 2019 budget. Pagdating ng 2020 na tumama sa atin itong COVID-19, walang budget sa pambili ng mga vaccines. So, yun ang inasikaso ng Bayanihan 1. And Bayanihan 2, ganun din. Ito naman, sinagot naman yung problema ng mga transport sector. But then again, as usual, the implementation is much to be desired.
Ayan, napakinggan natin po yung rebuttal ni Senate President Tito Soto. But before that, narinig rin po natin ang sagot ni Doc Willie Ong. So now we would like to engage our virtual audience. Are you satisfied with Dr. Willie Ong's response? May we see a show of hands, please? Are you
itaas niyo po yung
satisfied
kamay niyo
with Dr.
kung
Willie Ong's
satisfied
response?
kayo sa naging sagot ni Dr. Willie Ong. Can we ask our audience?
This
yes
is part of
or
their
no?
participation.
Medyo may delay, kaya may delay din yung kanilang pagtaas ng kamay. Nakikita natin may ilang nagtataas ng kamay, Rico.
Ayan. And of course, Ruth, we would also like to reiterate to our candidates, if there has been a response and if your name is mentioned during a statement by one of the candidates, you can signal us for a rebuttal of 1 minute. All right, let's move
Ngayon
on.
naman, we want to ask a question, specific question, to two of our senators regarding the recent Senate Blue Ribbon Committee report on the controversy involving Pharmaly Pharmaceutical. The partial report seeks plunder, graft, and other criminal and administrative charges against Health Secretary Francisco Duque, former government officials, and executives of Pharmaly Pharmaceutical Corporation. It also found President Duterte betrayed public trust, which is impeachable under the Constitution. Senator Kiko, you signed the report. Our question, if these individuals are found guilty as Vice President, how will you ensure that justice is served?
Well, bilang Vice President, siyempre, pagka sila ay sinampahan na ng kaso, kailangan respetuhin natin ang proseso ng ating criminal justice system. At makakaasa ang ating mga kababayan, hindi tayo makikialam. Dapat nga ang mga nagkasala ay managot at dapat mabilis ang paglilitis. Yan ang hirap sa ating sistema ng katarungan, mabagal. Kaya dapat din mamodernisa ang ating justice system, dagdagan ng pondo para mabilis ang paglilitis, mabilis mapaparusahan ang mga dapat nagkasala at mabilis din ang hustisya. Kaya bilang Vice President, dito sa kaso ng Pharmaly, kinakailangan talagang busisiin ng husto at pursigihin. Ngayon pa lang nagtatago ang napakaraming mga testigo na dapat sana'y magpapaliwanag at pinoprotektahan pa at dinedepensahan. Ibig sabihin, kung wala silang kasalanan, bakit sila nagtatago? So we can assure the public, pag tayo ang binigyan ng pagkakataon, we will ensure that justice will be served. Hindi biro itong nangyari dito sa bilyong-bilyong halaga na binulsa habang namamatay ang ating mga kababayan. Dapat managot itong mga nagkasala at dapat talagang maparusahan.
Tingnan natin ngayon ang reaction ng ating virtual audience. Another show of hands. Are you satisfied with the response of Senator Kiko Pangilinan? Tingnan natin kung
Meron
may mga
tayong konting
magtataas ng
delay,
kamay.
Ruth. So hintayin natin ang show of hands ng ating virtual audience. Yes?
Ayan,
If they're
nakita natin,
satisfied
nagtaas na sila ng
indeed
kamay.
with the response of Senator Kiko Pangilinan. More than 50% are satisfied with his response. Maraming salamat po. And now, Senate President Tito Soto, you have denied that you are pressuring senators to sign the Blue Ribbon Committee report on Pharmaly. Ang sabi po ninyo, Senate President, quote, I will resign and shoot myself in Luneta. What is your stand on the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee report?
To prove that I was not pressuring anyone. Because the news report was that, or was it fake news on social media, that I was pressuring members of the Senate to sign the committee report. The Senate President never does that. I have never done that. We leave it to the discretion of the members. And any member or any senator signing a committee report can say with reservations, or I dissent. Hindi ganun kadali po yun na magpapirma o pumirma. It's up to them. Then also, just to make it clear, baka akala nila yung draft report, yun na ang Senate committee report. Hindi pa. Linawin ko muna. Kung may mga dapat sampahan ng kaso, sampahan. That is my personal opinion. But the draft committee report will have to go through plenary. And in plenary, that is when we pass it, we debate on it, para malaman natin kung sino-sino mga kasama dapat do sa kaso at sino dapat ang makakasuhan. Because usually, the Ombudsman nakikinig sa pinapadala ng Senado, katulad ng ginawa kong investigasyon sa PhilHealth na pinakasuhan ko lahat yung mga ngay gumawa ng kabalbalan dun sa pera ng PhilHealth. Nakasuhan lahat yun, but we passed it in plenary. Majority signed, but we passed it in plenary, and it was a Senate report. It was no longer a blue ribbon draft report like what is happening now.
Virtual audience, we would like to see a show of hands if you are satisfied with Senate President Tito Soto's response. May we see a show of hands, please?
Itaas po natin ang kamay if you're satisfied with the response of SP Soto. Ayan na, may
we are seeing some who are responding to Senator Tito Soto's response. All right. Maraming salamat po for your participation. Actually, if Representative Lito Atienza was here, we would have also asked him also about the House panel's own probe on the Farmally controversy.
This is a CNN Philippines special presentation, the Filipino Votes Vice Presidential Debate 2022. Candidates, the mission vision of the office of the president states you will serve to uplift the lives and protect the liberty of the Filipino people.
And our next question pertains to micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, which is considered the backbone of the Philippine economy. But they're unevenly affected by this pandemic. We'd like to know how you'll uplift their lives amid this raging health crisis. Stay with us. We'll be right back. You're watching a CNN Philippines special presentation, the Filipino Votes Vice Presidential Debate 2022.
7 out of 9 candidates are here on stage with us, and we're asking them your questions to know where they stand on key issues that are important to all of us. At isa nga po dyan, yung binanggit natin kanina, micro, small, and medium enterprises or MSMEs, which comprise 99.5% of all business establishments in the country. Ang tawag nga po natin sa kanila, backbone ng ating ekonomiya. Without them, millions of our kababayans will be jobless. Candidates, we want to know, what can you do in your capacity as Vice President to come to the rescue of small business owners who are struggling from the pandemic and from other disasters? Banggitin na rin natin yung Typhoon Odette. We want to hear first from Carlos Serapio.
Thank you. I have examined the Bayanihan 2 law passed by Congress, and they have practically factored every scenario that can happen. And they have actually budgeted a big amount of money in support of SME. Now, considering that the incoming administration will have to abide not just by the law, but will have to use the funds that have been budgeted under the General Appropriations Act. Ang magagawa lamang po namin ay sumunod po kami doon sa tinatadhana ng batas at ipatupad namin po ito na mahusay. Since I'm running under a dual context, we're running under a transition platform, and that at the same time, we are going to be operating in the existing system. Ang aming approach po sa old system is ipatupad yung maganda na nilang simulan at gamitin yung pondo na kanilang nailagay po doon. Datapwat, meron din po kaming napansin doon sa Bayanihan Act. ang research and development ay binigyan lamang ng 10 milyon, samantalang ang mga daanan ng bisikleta na mahalaga rin ay binigyan ng 1 bilyon mahigit. So tingin namin ay dito naman sa aming panukala sa transisyon, research and development ay dapat bigyan ng mas marami pong halaga.
Kayo naman po, Senator Kiko Pangilinan.
Ang Robredo Pangilinan Tandem, ang kanyang mungkahi ay kumuha ng 100 bilyong piso mula sa mga realignment lamang ng ating current budget at suportahan yung small and medium enterprises bilang ayuda. Pero merong mga, hindi to utang, ayuda ito, pero merong mga restrictions o merong mga kinakailangan gawin. Halimbawa, makakakuha ka ng ayuda kung hindi mo tatanggalin yung iyong mga empleyado so that we can preserve these jobs, or 2, kung kukunin mo ulit yung mga tinanggal mong trabahador dahil sa COVID. So 100 billion yan. In the last Congress, this administration gave 15 billion total assistance sa SM, micro and small. Napakaliit dahil over 1 million ang ating mga small and medium enterprises. At sila ang pinakamalaking employer, ika nga, 90% of our employees or employment comes from small, medium enterprises. So we really have, kinakailangan suportahan. So yan ang ating gagawin. At syempre, kinakailangan talagang busisiin ng gusto. The DTI is a very professional organization, very professional, mabilis silang kumilos. Pagka binigay mo sa DTI yung 100 billion para sa suporta sa small and medium enterprises, talagang alam nating mapupunta yan sa tamang tulong at tamang ayuda para tuloy-tuloy ang ating ekonomiya ay sumigla.
Walden Bello, if you are elected as Vice President, paano po ninyo tutulungan ang mga micro, small, and medium enterprises?
Well, mahalaga ho itong topic na ito kasi unang-una ho, we need to repeal yung Foreign Investment Act Amendment na nag-lower ho nung Filipino only to about 100,000 lang, no? From 200,000 to 100,000. Yun hong retail trade liberalization, no? Nakapapasanin ho, no? It lowers from 125 million pesos to 25 million pesos yung pagpasok ng foreigners, no? So we have had all of these foreign-oriented laws that have been passed recently, and Senate President Soto was the one who pushed them through Congress, no? And Senator Pangilinan also signed, no? So paano yan? Sinasabi nyo for Filipino kayo, and then you're liberalizing all these laws, no? And kami ni Calyodi, we are going to have 250 billion emergency fund for MSEs. Pero hindi sapat yan. We need to bring back a country, that really reserves our small and medium industries na nakakain na ng mga foreigners, no? So, yung sabi nga ni Senator Soto, he tries to portray himself as independent of the Duterte administration. That's not true.
Thank you very much, Walden Bello. Would you like to rebut to what Walden Bello has just said, Senate President?
The retail trade liberalization law is to uplift the economy of the country. It is madaling mamintas sabihin nga ba't binaba yung
Mr. Bello, no interruption please. Please proceed, Senate President.
We have lowered the threshold for those who would want to invest, foreign investments, because that is the way to open up the economy. Hindi pa pwedeng yung sitwasyon lang natin ngayon na mangyayari. Because we have, in our case, we have a stopgap measure. Like, for example, we have the budget reform advocacy of Senator Lacson and myself. Right now, there are, every year, for the last 10 years, the 328 billion of the budget is unused. And we can easily use that.
We will let you finish your statement,
All right.
Senate President.
We can easily use that to help the MSMEs easily. For example, give 1 billion each for every province. There are only 81 provinces. 1 billion each. Imagine what it can do for the economy in Occidental Mindoro and all the other provinces, especially the poor provinces.
Thank you, Senate President. Senator Kiko.
We supported the measure precisely because we feel given yung situation sa ASEAN, tayo mapapababa nung investments natin mula sa abroad, napakahalaga nan. Ngunit binalanse naman natin. Kaya nga merong 100 billion na suporta sa ating maliliit na negosyante para talagang mabigyan sila ng alalay at ayuda habang nasa gitna tayo ng COVID response. We have ng COVID at ang pandemya. So kinakailangan natin balansehin. Hindi pwedeng bawal ang lahat ng foreign investment o kaya restrict it to the degree na hindi na lalaki ang ating ekonomiya dahil nakakadagdag naman sa totoo lang ng trabaho. But at the same time, suportahan ang ating lokal. Kaya nga merong 100 billion which is 85 billion more than what this administration has given in terms of assistance to micro, small, and medium enterprises.
Again, paalala lang po namin sa ating mga kandidato, wag po nating interrupt pag merong sumasagot. And for the rebuttal, you just have 1 minute.
All right, napakinggan natin si Senate President at si Senator Kiko. Are you satisfied, Mr. Bello, with their responses?
No, I am not, because they're opening up SMEs, and small enterprises, to be eaten up by putting down the threshold by foreign entrepreneurs and businesses. And then they say that they're protecting SMEs and medium enterprises. It's say na, okay, bibigyan kami kayo ng pondo para makatulong. Pero hindi yun ang problema. The problem is, for instance, yung tariff laws natin, 1 to 4% and all of that, really has gone down. So let's not kid ourselves. You're sending this country and our SMEs to the hands of all these foreign enterprises that will eat them up.
Walden Bello, we move on now to our next issue, which is also related to MSMEs. Many of those are Filipino fisherfolk whose livelihood have been affected not just by the pandemic but also by many other factors. This question goes to Senator Kiko Pangilinan. You promised to redeploy the Coast Guard and Navy ships to protect our fishermen from possible harassment from foreign vessels, which are mainly Chinese vessels. We're talking about a country with the largest navy in the world. At pagdating sa gray ships, they're also known as warships. At ibang usapan na yan. So in April last year, President Duterte said he would send gray ships if China starts digging for oil, quote, to state a claim. Are you prepared to take this maritime dispute to another level?
Well, I'm prepared to fight for our rights over the waters of our exclusive economic zone and not be subservient. Hindi tayo pwedeng sunod-sunuran sa China. Gusto natin makipagkaibigan sa China pero wag naman dahil sa pagkakaibigan natin sa kanila, i-give up na natin yung 550,000 square kilometers of sovereign and exclusive economic zone. Alam mo, tinataboy ng ang ating mga mangingisda, ipaglaban natin ang ating soberenya. Dati, ang kinikita nila 40 to 60,000 a month dahil nakakapunti sila doon sa malayo. Ngayon, dahil wala na yung Coast Guard, wala na yung Navy, talagang hindi na sila, wala na pumuprotekta sa kanila. So dapat i-resume yung patrol, dapat i-resume yung Coast Guard para pag naroon yung ating mga mangingisda, meron silang takbuhan. Number one. Number two, para tumaas ang kanilang kita. Ngayon, 3,000 pesos a month na lang ang kinikita. Kulang-kulang pa. Panggasolina lang. So, kawawa ang ating mangingisda. And so, we have to fight for our exclusive economic zone. That is energy security dahil maraming oil dyan at gas reserves. That is food security dahil maraming isda dyan at aquamarine resources. Ipaglaban natin yung arbitral ruling. Dahil atin yan, atin ang West Philippine Sea.
Usapang ekonomiya pa rin po tayo. Economic recovery.
Ruth, meron gustong sabihin si Senate President?
Yes, I think it's very important that the audience or our people know that we filed, and I personally filed in the Senate, the creation of the establishing maritime zones. The maritime zones will define the internal waters, the archipelagic waters, the territorial waters, and the economic zones of the country. Wala tayo noon. Kung ang China mayroong 9-dash line, wala tayong maritime zones, hindi maliwanag. That is why I filed the bill to ika ngayon linawin mabuti yan. At pag dyan, pinasok tayo nung kapitbahay natin, papasok yung MDT, yung Mutual Defense Treaty. Ang kalaban nila, si Canona.
Thank you very much for that statement.
Mr. David.
Yes, Mr. David, you would like to rebut and add?
Nais ko lamang magtanong kay Ginoong Kiko Pangilinan. Kasi paulit-ulit naman yung sinasabi niya na labanan natin. No? Panahon pa ni Aquino at nitong kay Duterte, wala naman tayong nagawa doon sa sinasabi natin, ipaglaban natin So sa papaano mong paraan gagawin yung pakikipaglaban sa China para irespeto yung ating karapatan doon sa ating mga katubigan dyan sa West Philippine Sea. We cannot just simply say, ipaglaban natin. At ang nangyayari pa, sa mga proposals nyo, ang nangyayari pa, pinapatronize nyo yung ating mahihirap. Hindi nyo naman sila ini-empower with all those things that you're presenting. Libreng ganito, ayudang ganyan. That is not empowerment. That is patronage.
Siguro, can I respond?
Senator Kiko, do you have a rebuttal?
Yes. Siguro hindi narinig ni Ginoong David yung kanina kong sinabi dahil sabi ko nga, we will resume the Coast Guard patrols in the area. We will resume the Navy patrols in the area. So, yun ang gagawin para maprotektahan ang ating mga mangingisda at ma-assert natin ang ating soberenya ron. Number 2, we will have to engage with ASEAN. Indonesia, Vietnam, they are also concerned about the aggression of China. We should align with ASEAN neighbors who together we can strengthen our position that this aggression is not right. And number 2, the US, Australia, Japan are also concerned about this 9-dash line illegal claim, fake claim. And we have to also align and strengthen our alliances with them so that we have a broad alliance that will assert or will oppose this unacceptable 9-dash claim of China.
But we also have to take note, Senator Kiko, that China's Navy is far larger than the Philippines. And it is very minuscule compared to the power of China.
Far larger than Vietnam and Indonesia, but they can assert, they have asserted their sovereignty over these waters. Indonesia even, binomba nga, pinasabog yung Chinese vessel Hindi naman ibig sabihin gera.
In response to the two gentlemen.
So we have to assert. I'm not saying we should atakihin natin sila. Pero pagka tayo na wino-water cannon, hindi naman tayo pwedeng nakangalang. We have to, our Navy and our Coast Guard must defend our sovereign waters. And it starts with being present in these areas by having these patrols.
Gusto ng ating mga kandidato na marinig din yung side nila sa issue na ito. We have Congressman Bello. Yes, sir.
Napakita na natin dito yung magiging foreign policy ng Lenny Kiko administration at saka nung Lacson Soto administration. Sinabi na ni Senate President na he is going to invite the United States, to oppose China. Papasok na lang daw dyan, no? MDT, Mutual Defense Treaty. Hindi humari yan. We have to have an independent foreign policy. And ito naman si Senator Pangilinan, we will join the Quad. Come on! This is dominated by the Australia, US, etc.
I did not say we will join the Quad.
No, but you said that you are going to align with the Quad.
No, Senator.
No,
interruptions, please.
That is consistent with the Aquino administration's pro-US policy. You're just carrying that out again.
Say we would join the Quad. You look at the tapes. Please, let's stick to the facts.
Let's stick to the facts.
Professor, let's stick to the facts. You are a professor.
Let's stick
you
to
are
the
a
facts.
professor.
Yes.
Stick
All right, we'll have to end it there for now. And Senate President, you would like to respond?
Because I was alluded to.
Yes.
Yes,
I
go
never
ahead.
said invite. I did not use the word invite. I wonder where he got it.
Mr. Bello, please, let us finish Senate President's statement.
You follow the agreement that we have. We have a treaty. We have an agreement. Once pinasok tayo ng foreign, kahit hindi China, kahit sinong foreign, may aggression sa atin. And if they do that in the maritime zones that I am saying na dapat ay ating markahan, papasok ang Mutual Defense Treaty. Automatic yun. And the Department of State of the United States has already said that. There's no one being invited here. Yun ang batas, yun ang agreement, yun ang treaty.
Let's invite them in.
No, that's not inviting.
have SP
It's not inviting. Anong gusto natin? Pasukin tayo ng China.
Mr. Bello, please, let's follow the rules.
Anong gusto natin? Pasukin lang tayo ng China, hindi tayo papalag? Bubuka ka tayo? Ba hindi pwede?
Mr. Bello. All right. We've heard both sides. We've heard their arguments. We have many topics to cover for this vice presidential debate. And we would like to inform all our candidates, please, no interruption. It was stated in the rules when we began this program. So we shall move on.
Sinabi na po natin kanina, sorry, no, na kailangang patayin natin yung mic pag meron pong pumapasok habang nagsasalita ang isang kandidato. Please respect the rules. Okay. We have... Yes, sir. Marami pa pong
We are
pagkakataon
also
na
trying to
makapagsalita
control
lahat.
because there's so many issues that we need to cover in this debate. All right.
Moving on.
Moving on.
Moving on.
Ruth.
The next topic is all about economic recovery. Ito po ay isang topic rin na malapit sa ating publiko. It's a priority of any government in any part of the world. But before we talk about how we can move forward as a nation, pag-usapan muna natin yung realidad ngayon. Alam po namin, ramdam ng lahat yung linggo-linggo na pagtaas na presyo ng ating gasolina. And as vice presidential candidates, you're also here to represent the policies of your running mate. What would your administration do to help consumers cope with rising fuel prices? Alam naman natin na may domino effect yan kasi tataas yung transport costs and that will also affect yung prices of basic goods and commodities. Kaya apektado po ang budget ng bawat pamilya. So ang tanong natin una ay kay Mr. Rizalito David. Ano po ang gagawin ng inyong administrasyon para mapigilan po or matulungan ng mga consumers to deal with the rising oil prices?
Alam nyo, 2 beses na ako nanawagan sa palasyo. At I hope na narinig din ng ating mga senador at mga congressmen na magpatawag si Ginoong Pangulo, Rodrigo Duterte, ng special session of Congress para bigyan siya ng power to suspend the implementation of the excise taxes and probably bawasan yung value-added tax at the pump, That would reduce the price by at least mga 5 to 6 pesos already, which is substantial para makarecover din yung ating mga ngalakal at ating mga drivers, Ang isang pinaka-importante dito, pinabayaan natin kasi na ibenta yung isang napakalaking asset natin noong panahon ni Ramos, yung Petron, na napakalaki ang kinikita. Ang sa akin, kung kami ang mamumuno, i-reacquire natin yung Petron para ito ang mag-barometer ng pricing ng ating fuel requirements dito sa bansa at makapag-refine tayo ng sarili nating fuel, Yan, importanteng bagay yan. Wala kasi tayong control dahil wala tayong sarili nating oil company. Kaya yun ang nais kong mangyari.
Doc Williong, nakikita po natin ngayon ang sitwasyon sa Eastern Europe. Russia invading Ukraine. At nakikita po natin na umaakyat ngayon ang presyo ng crudo mahigit ng or lampas ng $100 per barrel. Ano po ang ating solusyon? Because pag umaakyat po ang presyo ng gasolina, lahat po naaapektuhan.
Yes, tama yung sinabi mo, Rico, no? Talaga problema natin sa Russia and Ukraine, tataas ang presyo ng gasolina, kuryente. Ang plano namin ni Mayor Isko ay pag nanalo siya, ibababa natin yung tax by 50% sa petrolyo at 50% yung tax sa kuryente para at least mabawasan ng mga 5 to 6 pesos. Itutuloy natin yung mga ayuda sa ating kababayan kasi nahirapan sila. Tulad ng ginawa ni Mayor Isko sa Maynila. Ngayon, February, March, meron niya siyang ayuda ng 700,000 food boxes para lang maibsan. Problema talaga sa kuryente, isa pa, yung malampayan natural gas natin, mauubos na by 2027. Diba? So magre-rely na lang tayo sa iba, sa coal at renewable energy. Itataas natin yung renewable energy, pero yung pinag-aawayan natin kanina dito sa West Philippine Sea sa ating kababayan, ano ba pinag-aawayan? Yung West Philippine Sea po kasi may 190 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. May 11 billion barrels of oil na nakatago doon. Tapos 77% ng mga isda natin nandun. Kaya kung pwede siguro muna hindi maggera, kausapin natin maigi yung China, sabihin natin atin to. Kung merong 60-40 deal, tignan natin. Pero syempre, kaibigan pa rin natin yung Amerika kasi Amerika magbibigay ng armas sa atin. So kung pwede makuha itong mga yaman na to para bumaba na yung presyo sa gas at kuryente. Salamat po.
Now let's go to Senator Tito Soto.
We have a silver bullet to these problems, encompassing fuel, poverty, BRAVE. Matagal na namin programang tinutulak ni Senator Lacson ito. At we have ibinabagay na namin sa panahon. It stands for Budget Reform Advocacy for Village Empowerment. Ang kailangan kasi, nakahanda tayo. Whatever mangyari sa oil sa ibang bansa, iba kung nakahanda tayo sa baba. Dapat ang budget reform natin, manggaling sa bottom-up budgeting. Hindi kasulad na nangyayari ngayon na ceiling, bibigyan ng ceiling yung mga departamento, magsasubmit ng kung ano-ano, hindi alam kung ano nangyayari sa baba. Merong disconnect. Samantalang, kung ang magagawin natin ay yung budget reform na bottom-up, inaalam mo sa barangay, ano mga pangangailangan nyo? Akyat sa Municipal Development Council, akyat sa Regional District Development Council, akyat sa National Level. Pagdating ng National Expenditure Program, maliwanag yung mga pangangailangan sa baba. Pasama na din niya yung subsidy sa public transport. Kung tataas ang fuel sa ibang bansa, magkakaroon tayo ng problema sa oil. Meron tayong subsidy para sa mga public transport natin.
You're watching a CNN Philippines special
Ruth,
presentation.
Meron pong gustong sabihin na si Mr. Manny Lopez.
Yes, thank you very much. Napansin ko po, namimigay tayo ng mga billion dito in this program, no? But the truth of the matter, the reality that we will be facing is one that will require belt tightening. Sapagkat ang pandemya po, the repercussions of this pandemic, nahirapan ang global economy, ang ating local economy, maraming out of jobs, maraming mga iba't ibang mga micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises na nalulugi. So we came up with a three-pronged socio-economic development and political reform agenda. And this will require a new omnibus investment code, a streamlined bankruptcy law, and provision for low-interest loans para po makabangon ang ating mga MSMEs, ang ating agrikultura, ang ating mga professionals, at ang mga consumers. Sapagkat pag nakabangon po yan, babangon din ang ating national economy.
May gusto po atang sabihin si Congressman Bello. You have 1 minute, sir.
Yes, I think it would be very important with respect to yung sinabi ni Mr. David, that we not only have Petron back, but we repeal the oil deregulation law para naman may control tayo sa mga presyo. No? Secondly, kailangan na ng price controls. And, when there's an emergency, there has to be price controls. And then, back to this situation, the Senate, passed this, itong lowering the income tax of the corporations in the midst of a pandemic, no? From 30 to 20 for local and from 30 to 25 for foreign corporations. And Senator Pangilinan was part of that. Senator Soto was part of that. It was pushed by the Duterte administration. So what the hell? You're saying you're for MSMEs and then you're bringing down the taxes of the big ones.
Marami pa tayong pag-uusapan mamaya. Posible pa tayong pumunta sa topic ng ekonomiya.
Mr. Lopez would like to add.
Okay.
Briefly.
As an economist and a management professional, I think we will have to strike a balance. When the budgeting and the priorities of the national government were undertaken, this was a pre-pandemic scenario. So accordingly, ang mga projections po, mga economic projections, ay nakasaad sa ganung senaryo. Ngayon, under the pandemic, with all the repercussions, negative repercussions, I would also agree with Professor Bello na kailangan magkaroon ng corresponding adjustments. And I think the Senate can handle this. Our two very distinguished co-BP candidates.
Okay, mamaya mas marami pa tayong...
Just very quickly, okay. Sinagot ko na yung point ni Ginoong Bello na we have to strike a balance, and that's why we put we are putting a 100 billion assistance fund for small and medium enterprises, as we also allow for investments from abroad, for example, to come in. So it's a balance. That we answered the question already earlier.
Mamaya marami pa tayong pagkakataon na marinig ang ating mga kandidato. You're watching a CNN Philippines special presentation. When we return, the war on drugs and the International Criminal Court. This is the Filipino Votes Vice Presidential Debate 2022. Stay with us.
We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Filipino Votes Vice Presidential Debate 2022. I'm Ruth Cabal.
And I'm Rico Hizon. 7 vice presidential candidates are pitching their platforms to Filipino voters ahead of our general elections on May the 9th. And before we proceed to our next...
Paalala lang natin, no, sa ating mga kandidato na wag po tayong mag-i-interrupt pag sumasagot po ang isang kandidato. Sana po maintindihan nyo na kasi mas maganda pag naririnig ng buo ang sagot ng isang kandidato. I'm sure yun din ang gusto ng ating mga manonood.
And when everybody speaks over each other, it is the Filipino people who do not understand your platform of government and why you want to run and become the next vice president of the country. Thank you very much for your cooperation. And of course, Ruth, we would also like to mention to our viewers that on social media, on Twitter, hashtag CNNPH VP Debate is currently one of the top trending.
Kaya pwede po kayo mag-tweet or mag-comment sa ating Facebook para malaman din natin kung ano yung reactions nyo.
A recent survey found that Filipinos have identified 5 top issues that the current administration should immediately address. Number 1 is fighting graft and corruption. Candidates, we want to look at your track record. What have you done in the past to prove that as the next vice president, you will have the ability and capacity to fight graft and corruption? Unahin natin si Rizalito David.
Ang corruption po ay nagmumula sa takot. Nagmumula sa takot. It can be rooted in fear. And in fear, nade-develop yung greed. Maraming panahon ko na pong sinasabi na dapat magkaroon tayo sa ating lipunan ng revolusyon sa pananampalataya. Pretty much naman kasi alam natin ang mga sagot dyan sa ating mga problema. Pero bakit hindi nangyayari na masagutan natin? dahil nagkukulang tayo sa pag-ibig, no? Hindi political will, pag-ibig. Kaya po, yung corruption ay yumayabong dahil wala tayong pag-ibig sa ating kapwa. Kaya po ako, parating sinasabi ko, ibalik natin ang gobyerno kay Kristo. No? Restore all things in Christ. Yun ang pratikong panawagan. Magkaroon tayo ng himagsikan sa ating pananampalataya. Simply put, live our faith. Yun lang naman parati yun eh. Wala na, lahat ng batas ginawa na natin para maiwasan ang korupsyon, pero walang nangyayari. Bakit? Kasi nasa puso yun, yung takot at yung kasakiman, no? Na kailangan mawala at mawawala lamang yan kung tayo'y magbabago. Magkaroon ng pagbabago ang lipunan kung ang bawat isa ay magkakaroon ng pagpapanibago sa pamamagitan ng pag-aalay ng sarili sa mga turo ng ating Panginoon.
Senator Kiko Pangilinan, your track record on fighting graft and corruption.
Well, 3 beses na tayong hinalal ng ating mga kababayan bilang senador mula noong 2001 at mahalaga sa akin ang tiwala na ibinigay sa atin ng ating mga kababayan. Kaya tiniyak natin na sa 3 termino natin ni minsan, hindi tayo nasangkot sa anumang kaso ng anomalya, number 1. So maliwanag yan. Number 2, nung tayo ay NFA chairman ng NFA board, for the first time in 42 years, nag-reject ng bid ang NFA dahil masyadong mataas. In fact, 4 na beses tayo nag-reject ng bid. Hindi daw nangyari yan sa 42 taon ng NFA. Bakit nag-reject? Kasi mataas. Bakit mataas? Dahil merong isinisingit na tongpats. At sa 4 nating pag-reject, nabababa nila ang presyo ng Thailand at Vietnam ng kanilang ino-offer na bigas. At nakatipid tayo ng 7 billion pesos dahil dito. So, yan ang ating track record. At siyempre, nung first term natin, talagang binusisi natin at dinepensa ang pagmamodernisa ng ating justice system. Dinagdagan natin ang sahod ng mga huwes, binaba natin ang vacancy rate sa huwes nung tayo member ng JBC, nadagdagan din ang benepisyo ng ating mga prosecutor. Dahil pag malakas ang sistema ng katarungan, talaga ang corruption mababawasan talaga dahil napaparusahan ang dapat parusahan.
Now may we hear from Manny Lopez.
Thank you. As a private citizen, businessman, and public official, I once served also in NFA Grain Score as its president and general manager. And I fought graft and corruption to the fullest extent of my capability and my ability. And I lost. Why? Because there is no political will to fight graft and corruption in this country. It has become endemic, and it seems to get worse as we elect more distinguished legislators and more distinguished officials. So, what do we propose? How do we address graft and corruption more effectively? We can look at it from a systemic perspective, because graft and corruption in this country has become systemic. It does require systemic solutions. And we have this e-governance system that could address specific loopholes in the public financial system. And we can adopt this. This is likewise a UN-approved and supported initiative. And as our distinguished colleagues here have mentioned, fighting graft and corruption will require a renewal of our faith in ourselves, in our country, and our desire to fight graft and corruption.
Let's move on sa isa pang mainit na issue. Noong November, the International Criminal Court put on hold its investigation into the country's controversial war on drugs. It was in response to the government's deferral request. Ang sabi ng gobyerno natin, gagawa na lang daw sila ng sarili nilang investigasyon dito. Candidates, your presidents have different views on cooperating or not with the ICC. But we want to know first and foremost from you, will you push to have the country rejoin the ICC? Please explain your answer. We start with SP Soto.
Yes, obviously, because we passed in the Senate a resolution and a petition I filed with the Supreme Court na sinasabi namin sa Supreme Court na desisyonan yung sinasabi na kapag kami ay pumasok sa isang agreement or treaty, two-thirds vote ang binibigay ng konstitusyon at binibigay sa Senado at binibigay namin. Pero once mag-abrogate, ang sinasabi namin sa Senado, kailangan paalam din sa amin. Kailangan ipasa din namin na sinasabi namin payag kami i-abrogate. Because the abrogation done by the Executive Department was unilateral. Kaya yun ang sinasabi na obviously, ang Senado ay pabor doon, or kami, majority in the Senate, pabor, na pag-usapan yan at ibalik tayo. At kung gusto mag-imbestiga ng ICC dito sa atin, ayaw mag-imbestiga. Kung wala tayong tinatago, wala tayong dapat katakutan. And, well, I wish I was able to given a chance about the corruption. Perhaps later. Sige.
Puntahan natin si Mr. Serapio. Ano pong masasabi niyo sa rejoining ICC or not?
Yes. As a respectable member of the international community, I joined the Senate President in his stand that we should rejoin the International Criminal Court. And for that matter, we should also be part of all other international organizations which help promote international harmony, cooperation, and amity that is provided for in our Constitution. So that's my short answer to this question.
And Doc Willie Ong, what is your point of view on this issue? Rejoin or stay out of the International Court?
Salamat, Rico. Siyempre, yes tayo. Sasali tayo ulit sa ICC. Pero ang problema talaga natin itong war on drugs, di ba? I think kahit ito sa mga international organizations, yung criminal justice approach, minsan hindi yun ang pinakamaganda pag-solve ng war on drugs. Kailangan natin yung public health approach tulad na sinabi ni Senator Tito Soto. Ang addiction po kasi, may problema po sa prefrontal cortex. Dito sa harap natin, na-addict talaga yung tao. Kung di siya na-addict sa shabu, baka mag-Novain siya o mag-cough syrup siya. So, sakit po siya. So 98% are mga users, 2% lang ang pushers. So kailangan focus natin science-based, kailangan bawasan ng stigma sa mga gumagamit, paparamihin natin yung mga libreng gamot. May gamot na kasi pang-solve o pang-cure sa mga nagiging drug addict. Hindi pwede yung ikukulong, tapos pagbalik, magiging addict sila ulit. At paparamihin yung psychologists, psychiatrists, at ililibre yung mga gamot dito. Sa Maynila, kay Mayor Isko, talagang 97% ay nahuhuli at hindi sila napapatay.
Napakinggan po natin yung mga response ng ating mga candidates that they will rejoin. What about cooperation with the ICC? And to what extent will you cooperate with the International Criminal Court? This question is for you, Walden Bello.
Well, the short answer is full cooperation, and we will make sure that there's a coordination between our justice system and the ICC, because 27,000 extrajudicial executions directed from Malacanang, President Duterte cannot escape this responsibility. And he should be prosecuted, and I believe he will be prosecuted and brought to a cell in The Hague. And we will support it. Calyode and I will in fact support this. But I would just like to say something. Yung rewriting of history. Si Senator Soto, he's rewriting history. Noong kasagsagan ng war on drugs, did he say anything critical of the president? Did he protect Senator Laila de Lima, who was a member of the Senate? No? I mean, he was just supportive during that time when the president was destroying the integrity of the Senate. No? So, Senator Soto, please don't rewrite history. You were an ally of the president until just very recently. Okay? So, let's be frank with our kababayan naman. Huwag tayo magsisinungaling dito. Kaya, mahirap ho yan. Hindi ho ba anti-terror law itinulak nyo? Oh boy, come on.
Senate President.
I think former Congressman Bello has got his figures all wrong. Una, and then later I want to ask, what do you mean by ally? If because kung dahil kami magkaibigan, ally na ako. I have preserved the independence of the Senate always. And you can ask the members of the minority and the majority. Ngayon, ito, why do I say he's got it all wrong? Kaya ako open na ang ICC mag-imbestiga rito. From the 2016 up to the present, October 2021, there were 258,000 drug operations. This is on the issue of illegal drugs, drug operations. There were 378,000 arrests. And there were only 6,021 related to these drug operations that died. So kung may EJK at sinasabi nila, binibintang nila kay President Duterte, dapat 378,000 ang patay. Hindi totoo yun, 21,000. Kung ano pinapadala nilang figures sa ICC,
Senate
hindi
President,
totoo yun.
your time is up.
You have the records speak for itself.
Senator Kiko, the question now is to you. Will you cooperate with the ICC, just apart from rejoining?
Yes, of course. In fact, we were one of those petitioners who questioned the withdrawal by the President of our membership in the ICC. So unfortunately, the Supreme Court did not share our view that the withdrawal should have been concurred by the Senate. So we will cooperate with the ICC. Yes. But again, a second petition was raised by the Senate President. Pero yung petition namin na kine-question yung pag-withdraw sa ICC ay hindi tinanggap ng Supreme Court. But yes, we will support first the rejoining, and we will cooperate.
All right. Mr. Bello would like to rebut, but first we will go to Mr. Manny Lopez.
I support the war on drugs because I see the implications of our nation becoming a narco state. While on the same premise, I also believe that human rights should be protected. So the President took this lose-lose proposition by the horn and to bring in foreign interference based on their values, based on their perceptions, to actually intervene in Philippine affairs is not a good proposition, not a good idea for the sake of our country and for our people. And so I think while there is a clamor to rejoin the ICC, it has to be timely. And we have to look at this biggest issue that is hounding the Duterte administration in a balanced manner.
Balikan po natin si Mr. Bello for your rebuttal, sir.
Yes, again, wag ho tayo mag-rewrite ng history, no? Kasi lahat naman, all the key legislative initiatives na itinulak ni President Duterte, who was the biggest backer? It was Mr. Soto. The Anti-Terror Act, the Public Services Act, the Retail Trade Liberalization Act, the Foreign Investment Amendment Act, the Rice Tariffication Act, you name it. He never dissented from any major legislative push by the President. Kaya hindi independent ang kandidatong ito. I mean, wag tayo mag-rewrite ng history. And, by the way, Mr. Soto, you never defended your colleague, Senator De Lima, when she was hauled out of the Senate. I mean, you just begged President Duterte to fall on your knees, and you didn't even oppose it.
I did not.
Okay.
All right. Senate President, you were alluded to by Mr. Bello. Out of respect, this will be the final answer for this particular issue.
Why don't you ask Senator De Lima herself? Because I did not allow her to be arrested in the Senate. That's one thing. Now, All the bills and all the laws that former Congressman Bello mentioned are all for the benefit of the people. Anti-terror law, bakit? Gusto mo ba? Terrorist? Kampi tayo sa terrorist. Hahayaan natin sila gano'n na lang. Hindi ba? Yung foreign investments, bakit? Ayaw natin makika-recover ang ekonomiya. Ano, nakasadlak na lang tayo. Baksak na lang. Well, we should allow that. And then, I don't think it's wrong if I'm a friend of the President. As long as the Senate is independent. Ang lahat ng pinasa namin sa Senado, kahit na pandemic, I was never absent, never late, kahit na to the detriment of my health, wala akong pakialam because I was doing my job. Ano? I only relied on Psalm 91. That's it.
Okay. We move on to another topic. As we mentioned, yun na muna yung huli for this one. Yung susunod natin, a study finds that provinces where political dynasties thrive are generally poorer. Because of this, yung mga magkakapamilya po, hindi na nababantayan ng isa't isa, nawawalan ng checks and balances, nandiyan ang impunity, corruption, and even violence.
But this year, elections are still dominated by political dynasties. Candidates, we want to know where you stand on this. We'll find out after a short break. This is a CNN Philippines special presentation. The Filipino Votes Vice Presidential Debate 2022. This is a CNN Philippines special presentation, the Filipino Votes Vice Presidential Debate 2022.
Our topic this time, political dynasties.
The Constitution explicitly prohibits political dynasties, but 3 decades later, no law has been passed to enforce it. Critics say it's because lawmakers themselves come from political dynasties. Pending pa rin ang anti-political dynasty bills sa Senado at sa lower house. What can you do differently as Vice President? As we said, a study finds that provinces where political dynasties thrive are generally poorer. Let's begin with Carlos Serapio.
Salamat. Salamat. Ngayon lamang pumasok ang usapin o issue sa aming transition platform at program of action. Lahat ng pinag-uusapan kanina nakapasok sa lumang sistema. Kaya nahihirapan din kaming magtaas ng kamay at sumagot dito. Dahil ang banggaan sa ngayon ay sistema na luma at sistemang bago. Sa sistemang luma po, hindi mangyayari na malulutas at matutugunan ang layunin na tigilan ang political dynasty. Wala pong iniwan yan doon sa sinasabi ko na programa hindi pwedeng basahin ng isang sistema na incompatible to. Walang iniwan doon sa telepono na Nokia, hindi siya makakapagpatakbo ka ng Netflix dyan. Dahil ang power base ng operating system is an oligarchic and elitist dynastic power base. So there is incompatibility between the objective of ending political dynasties in the country and the operating system. So ang magagawa po namin ay yung aming sinusulong sa ngayon. Isinusulong namin ang paglalagay ng bagong sistema sa pagtatalaga ng puno bayanihang constitution sapagkat doon hindi kailangan ng enabling legislation. The constitution itself will provide that political dynasty should definitely be not tolerated.
Sunod naman po nating maririnig si Dr. Willie Ong.
Yes, oo. Bali, ako lang po tumatakbo sa pamilya ko. Wala kaming political dynasty. Pati si Mayor Isko, wala kayong mahanap na mga dumagoso na ibang tumakbo. Actually, syempre, ayaw natin ng political dynasty, di ba? Pero meron namang mga paraan. Masyado kasi tayong strict eh. Hindi naman matutuloy din to, hindi rin naman papasa. Pero pwede tayong gumawa ng mga variations. Baka pwede may gap muna may isang term para at least hindi gamitin yung resources nung nahalal para tulungan yung anak niya, kamag-anak niya. Pwede rin naman na so kailangan may gap, tsaka may limit lang yung dami ng kamag-anak na po pwede. Siguro 2 o 3. Isang plano ni Mayor Isko na naisip namin, dahil meron tayong 17 region gusto niya yung pag-elect ng senators per region. Ito yung isang idea na magkakaroon ng 2 senator per region, so 34 lahat. So makakatulong to sa pag-develop ng mga regions natin. Merong tututok sa mga Muslim Mindanao at iba. At bababa din yung gastos ng mga senador sa pagtakbo. Isa po to ang iniisip natin para maging mas balanse yung Pilipinas, hindi puro Maynila lang po. Salamat.
Walden Bello, what are you going to do with the political dynasties?
Well, the Marcos dynasty and the Duterte dynasty, we're seeing how they represent really the greatest evil of the political system that we have. Which is why it is very important for our people, if you really want to oppose political dynasties, here is the 2 dynasties that they boast. The South and the North now will get together to eat up the Philippines. The task is up to our voters. Do not elect these dynastic cliques coming to power. Make sure that you tell them that you are not going to come to power just to eat up the Philippines between the 2 of you. So nasa sa voters niya ngayon. Okay? And that is why we are appealing, don't vote for these dynasts. And I'm really terribly sorry that Mayor Duterte is not here to face the people. She is a coward. Just like Bongbong Marcos is a fucking coward.
Open naman po tayo just in case gustong magpadala ng response ni Mayor Sara Duterte.
Oh, I would love to debate her. Wow!
Moving on, still in politics, ito po para kay SP Soto. Surveys show former Senator Bongbong Marcos is leading by a wide margin. Our question is two-pronged. What if both of you win? What would a Marcos Soto administration look like? And how do you plan on working with the former senator?
I have not given it a thought. In my sphere, we are working on the presidency of Senator Lacson. So hindi ko naisip yun. Basta sa akin, kung sakasakaling kami ay pala rin, binigyan kami ng pagkakataon, I will use my experience and my competence in facing and addressing issues of national concerns. After 30 years, palagay ko naman ay nakahanda ako dito. So, ganun ang aking thinking. So, wala akong iniisip na kung iba ang mananalo at this point.
And if Mayor Sara Duterte was here, we would also have asked her a similar question. If VP Robredo wins, what would a Robredo-Duterte administration look like? And how does she plan to work with Leni Robredo? And if Mayor Duterte would like to answer the question, of course, later on, she is welcome to do so on CNN Philippines.
At nandito naman yung running mate ni Vice President Leni Robredo. So si Senator Kiko, we have the same question for you. What would a Marcos Pangilinan administration look like? And ano ang plano nyo para makatrabaho ang dating senador?
Well, kaya ang hiling natin sa ating mga botante ay suportahan yung Leni Kiko tandem para hindi magulo. Para nagkakaisa ang presidente at vice-presidente, yan ang pinakamainam para sa tapat na gobyerno. No? At iaangat natin nga ang lahat. So yun ang ating pakay. Ngayon, having said that, magtatrabaho tayo para sa mga magsasaka at mangingisda at food security, anuman ang maging resulta ng halalan kung tayo ipag-aari.
And Rizalito David would also like to have his statement because
there's various combinations, no? What if it's a Rizalito David or a Bongbong Marcos or Leni Robredo presidency? How are you planning to cooperate with them, Mr. David?
I think malinaw naman yung aking advocacy. No? Kung sino man ang uupong Pangulo, i-offer ko yung aking sarili para tumulong. Subalit kung ayaw naman niya, itutuloy ko pa rin yung advocacy ko outside of the government. Yun lang naman ang pwede nating gawin. Ano? Kapag nagsalita na ang taong bayan, kung si Bongbong Marcos ang mananalo, which is very sad, no? Wala na tayong magagawa doon. Babantayan na lang natin kung ano ang gagawin niya. Kapag siya ay ng abuso, gagamitin natin yung Office of the Vice President para siya ay, kumbagay, labanan doon sa kanyang pang-aabuso.
Our next question goes to Carlos Serapio. The 2022 budget of the Office of the Vice President is over 700 million pesos, and that is 21% lower than last year. How do you plan to spend that amount as Vice President?
Well, we have designed, that means the political party has designed the Office of the Vice President, not just to support the President, and also at the same time to abide by the constitutional provision on the role of the Vice President. But we want the Office of the Vice President to be a table of idealism. It will be a table of philosophy, of advocacy, of aspirations, of vision. Most especially, it will be a table for the young people, for the young generation. Yung experience namin sa halos 50 taon ng pakikipaglaban para sa pagbabago ng ating sistema ay iyon ang maibabahagi natin sa ating mga kabataan. Sa ngayon kasi, ang nakikita nila, puro yung away sa kasalukuyang sistema. Labanan ng kulay at labanan lamang ng kung sino ang mas mabuti o sino ang mas masama. We are in a state of moral convolution. And unfortunately, our politics, our elections have not really been able to resolve this issue of moral convolution. And therefore, we have to introduce what we call as strategic, innovative exercises in the political process so that our young people will see something different than what is going on with our politics. So yung budget na yung kakasya na yun para namin maisagawa iyan.
Ngayon naman po, pakinggan natin si Mr. Ronnie Lopez. Paano niyo po gagastusin ang budget ng OVP?
Before I answer that, can I backtrack a bit on the political dynasty? I'd like to say that in fairness to our political spectrum, there are good dynasties, there are bad dynasties, and there are terrible dynasties. And to avoid the prospect of having terrible dynasties, we have to do something. We have to initiate some initiatives, some reforms to prevent the occurrence or the incumbency of bad dynasties. And I think this is high time because, the political landscape is now packed with dynasties. And if the country is being uplifted as a result of this leadership spectrum of having more dynasties, then so be it, if that's good for the country. But apparently, we are lagging behind as a country and as a people. And so therefore, we propose, under the Labour Party, a structural and political reform agenda that will empower the people once more. And this is through a people's initiative, a functional people's initiative with a prescribed implementation guidelines that could enable ordinary citizens to legislate, to amend laws, or rescind laws.
This is a CNN Philippines special presentation at the University of Santo Tomas.
When we come back, we'll ask questions about taxes. You're watching the Filipino Votes Vice Presidential Debate 2022.
are live at the University of Santo Tomas Quadricentennial Pavilion, and you are watching a CNN Philippines special presentation, The Filipino Votes, Vice Presidential Debate 2022. We have seen 7 out of 9 candidates who are seeking the second highest office of the land, and they are answering your questions. I'm Rico Hizon.
And I'm Ruth Cabal, and we want to thank everyone who sent their questions to us through our social media pages. Ang daming nagtutweet at nagtatrending nga tayo. Also, may mga lumapit din sa ating mga reporters and even our stringers from the provinces who sent in their questions.
Our next topic is about taxes. It's a specific question for Walden Bello. In an interview with CNN Philippines, you said that the country's billionaires should pay more taxes to generate more funds for the poor. We'd like to know more about these additional taxes to the rich that you are talking about, and how exactly, Mr. Bello, will these funds be allocated to the poor?
Well, we propose, Calyode and I, my presidential candidate, we propose that we would tax the top 250 to 500 billionaires in this country to 1 to 3% of their wealth, which means income, land, etc., etc. Now, this will yield about 1 trillion pesos, which would come to about 20-25% of the budget and more. Okay? Now, this is quite small. Okay? If you look at taxation rates in other countries, they go on the top levels, 20, 30, 35% in the US, something like around 39% in Germany. So our rich have no cause to complain. So this is going to be made as transfer payments to social services. Is this going to be possible? Of course, it is possible. 1, it is very small part of their income. Okay. 2 is that there are, in fact, many people among the rich in this country at this point, especially the younger rich, who are saying that we really need to be socially responsible. And then 3 is even Joey Salceda has said, that the rich now have to pay because they benefited from the pandemic. So this is a very sound thing.
Itutuloy natin ng issue dito sa buwis, and Senator Soto, you and your running mate, Senator Ping Lacson, have criticized the Finance Department's proposal for new taxes to manage government debt. Sabi po ninyo, ayusin ang pagkolekta ng buwis. How will you resolve the collection of taxes?
Digitalization. That is the answer, number 1 answer at the Bureau of Customs. We have given them the funds for it already, hindi kinukumpleto. Bakit? They want human intervention. Once we remove human intervention, we remove corruption, and we improve the collection of taxes. Ganun mismo, kahit sa BIR, kailangan improve natin collection of taxes. Hindi pa pwedeng dagdag ng tax. Nagbawas nga kami. We passed in the CREATE law that yung lahat ng below 250,000 a year ang kinikita, hindi dapat magbayad ng income tax. Pinasa din namin yun.
Okay, moving on to Mr. Manny Lopez, who is an economist. Your question, to increase taxes or not, at ano pong klase ng buwis?
I think the fiscal side of governance in this country has to improve. And there is a lot of room for improvement. First and foremost, the collection of taxes should be more efficient. Any avoidance of taxes should be penalized. And e-governance, as the good Senate President has mentioned, is a part of our legislative and executive agenda to improve efficiency in tax collection. On the same premise, on the other side of the coin, is to make best use of our taxes. And this means elimination of the leakages in the public finance sector, make our project implementation and program implementation more efficient, and there should be, better auditing procedures to make sure that every tax collected from the people should be spent wisely. So it's an overall picture. And the Public Finance Reform Management Act, which remains to be implemented up to this time, has not been implemented. And given the mandate to assume a more responsible position in this republic, we will make sure that our taxation system, our fiscal policy, will be improved dramatically. Thank you.
And since we are on the topic of tax collection, the Bureau of Internal Revenue, or BIR, has been identified by the Anti-Corruption Task Force as one of the graft-prone agencies. Once upon a time, there was even a proposal to abolish the Bureau. Former President and Vice President turned lawmaker Gloria Macapagal Arroyo proposed in 2017 to replace the BIR with a National Revenue Authority. Ang sinabi niya, there is a need to address growing taxpayer dissatisfaction and the increasing perception of systemic corruption in the BIR. Our question is, as Vice President, how will you help end the systemic corruption in the BIR? Senator Pangilinan, you have 90 seconds.
Well, again, I will go back to, you have to punish swiftly the guilty. Hindi pa pwedeng hindi pinaparusahan ang mga nagkakasala. Ang nangyayari kasi, pag ikaw ay magnakaw nga ng mas marami, mas meron kang abogado, makakalusot ka dahil mabagal ang sistema ng katarungan. In the long run, you have to modernize your judiciary. You cannot have a modern judiciary with a third world budget. So we really have to increase support for our judiciary. Dagdagan pa ang benefits ng mga huwes, mga prosecutor, ng mga court staff para maging efficient. Increase the budget. If we can double it, why not? And in exchange, dapat mabilis ang paglilitis. Ngayon kasi 6 na taon ang average na paglilitis. Dapat yan mabawasan sa 3 o 2 taon na lamang. Dahil pag mas marami ang napaparusahan sa mabilis na paraan, talagang magkakaroon ng takot at respeto sa ating mga batas. So that's how you address corruption and that's how you address itong misfeasance or pang-aabuso sa pwesto. Hindi lang ng BIR at iba pang mga ahensya. Balikan ko rin lang, between imposing more taxes and having a more efficient system of collection, we should prioritize the latter. Dahil hindi nakokolekta. 700 billion pesos a year, sabi ng COA, ang nawawala sa corruption. Siyempre, ang pakiramdam ng taxpayer, ibinabayad ko sa inyo, ninanakaw lang ninyo. So kinakailangan talaga ng mabilis na paglilitis at parusa ng corruption issues.
So, Senator Pangilinan, paano natin pwedeng iksian ang paglilitis? Alam natin dito ang hustisya sa Pilipinas matagal sa mga korte.
Unang-una, fill up all the vacancies in our court system. There are about 25% of our courts walang judge, kaya mabagal. To add more courts para yung dami ng kaso ay hindi na overloaded ang court system natin. And of course, hire more judges, give them more support, and then ito nga, convene the JELAC, which is the Judiciary Executive Legislative Advisory Council. The Senate President, the Speaker of the House, the Chief Justice, and the President of the country sits in the JELAC. It has been convened twice in 2008. It should be convened when the next administration comes in. And we talk about budgetary support. We talk about magkano pa ang kailangan para talagang marami na ang ating courts para mabawasan o bumilis ang paglilitis. Pagka masyadong maraming kaso, isang judge, mabagal talaga. Pag mas marami ang korte, mas marami ang judges, mas mabilis ang desisyon. At magiging 2 years na lang yan.
Balikan natin yung original na tanong kay Dr. Willie Ong. Ano po ang gagawin nyo para labanan ang systemic corruption sa BIR?
Yes, talaga mahirap talaga magbayad ng tax dito sa atin. Minsan gusto mo na magbayad ng tunay, ayaw pa rin nila tanggapin, kailangan may lagay. Tama naman po sinabi ni Senator Tito Soto, kailangan i-computerize. Alisin yung usap ng tao sa tao, dyan makukuha yung corruption. Pwede natin i-simplify yung pagbayad ng tax. Isa pa, pwede natin i-broaden, paramihin yung nagbabayad ng tax. Ayon sa pag-aaral, parang 19% lang ang nagbabayad. Kaya nahihirapan yung 19%. Kung mas marami ang magbabayad, mas magaan ito. At i-encourage natin yung mga tao na magbayad. Kasi yung buwis na binabayad nyo, yan ang pang sweldo sa teacher, di ba? Para proud tayo na magbayad. pwede rin ayusin yung BIR eh. May concept na i-retire mo, tapos i-rehire mo yung iba. Pwede natin gawin to para malinis yung mga bad apples. Tuloy-tuloy din yung tulong natin sa MSME. Dagdag ko lang sa ibang bansa, meron silang philanthropy mindset eh. Meron silang Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, ang laking pera binibigay, long-term tulong sa Amerika. Sa atin, yung mayayaman natin, parang walang philanthropy mindset eh. Pero kulang tayo dyan. Kung yung mga mayayaman sa Pilipinas, gagawa ng long-term projects para ma-alleviate, matulungan tayong mga mahihirap. Salamat po.
Walden Bello, your response.
Well, I think that, let's be honest, no? Alam naman natin tax breaks na binibigay ng ating executive as well as the Senate and the House, no? Yung napakalaking tax break, yan yung create law. Binabaan yung corporate income tax from 30% to 20%. And for foreign businesses, from 30 to 25%. Ang laki, trilyon na nawala sa atin yan. Ang tagal na ng agenda nila, even before pandemic. Pero ginamit tayo, they used the pandemic to get what they wanted. So, Senator Soto, Senator Pangilinan, pareho kayo nagboto sa CREATE Act that gave big tax breaks. So what are you saying, that you are not guilty of this process? Tama na yan, kalokohan na yan.
Senator Soto.
When we pass laws, it's the Congress that pass. Bakit pinag-iinitan mo kami dalawa?
Senator Soto.
Well, I don't think we should, huwag na natin patulan yung mga ganong style.
May I first?
Kiko?
Yes.
Kiko. And then we go to Mr. Manny Lopez.
Yes. Again, the issue of taxation is really a very sticky issue, no? Pero, nasa gitna tayo ng pandemya, hindi lang yung maliliit, pati yung mga malalaki na naapektuhan ng pandemya, yung negosyo nagsasara. And the CREATE law precisely, binabaan ito as a means to be able to provide support. Even the biggest companies like itong mga airline companies, bilyon-bilyon din ang nawawala sa kanila dahil dito sa pandemya. So we voted in favor of that because we recognized na iba ang kondisyon sa ngayon because of the pandemic. Unprecedented yung bagsak ng ating ekonomiya, unprecedented itong kawalan ng hanap buhay at trabaho. Kaya dapat unprecedented din ang kilos. I can understand yung concern ni Professor Bello regarding itong mga tax perks and tax breaks. But because it was a different, never before experienced pandemic which really killed, bagsak talaga yung ekonomiya, we felt it best to provide assistance and support for companies.
Mr. Manny Lopez.
I have a question to my fraternity brad, Senator Kiko Pangilinan. A very simple question lang, Brad. Kaya nyo bang, since you mentioned about judicial independence and objectivity, kaya nyo bang litisin ang fellow senator nyo kung nagkaroon ng malaking issue or participation in graft and corruption? I happen to be a participant of the Million People March. At ipinagmarcha po namin yan. And maraming mga legislators ang nasangkot dyan, reportedly about 100. Mabuti na lang ang fraternity brad ko, hindi kasali doon. And si Senator Soto. But as a general question, kaya nyo bang litisin ang kapwa nyo senador kung nasali, nasangkot sa graft and corruption?
Well, that's...
Very short answer lang po.
Merong ethics committee sa ating Senado, but of course, paglilitis ang pinag-usapan, sa hudikatura yan, no? And in fact, ang nangyari nga, nitong nakaraan, 3 senador ang nakulong, no? Dahil dun sa paglilitis sa Napoles Fund. Pero nung nanalo na ang bagong administration, o bago pa man at nung nanalo, nabaliktad yung sitwasyon.
Senate President Tito Soto. And then finally,
Yes.
before we go to the break, Mr. Serapio.
Yes, the answer is in the affirmative. There is a committee on ethics. If there is a case filed against a senator, we we will investigate no matter what.
Briefly, Mr. Serapio.
Ito po sistemang ito has reached its point of incompetence. No matter kung anumang subsystem or sectoral reform ang gawin, hindi po maaayos yan. Ang pinakasagot talaga rito ay total system change po. Kinakailangan tumawid tayo from the old political system to a new one. This is in the nature ng unitary system will always have this kind of problem po. Ganun po ang mangyayari dyan.
And speaking of corruption, it will be one of the priority topics in tomorrow's presidential debate with our very own Pio Ontiveros and Pinky Webb. Tune in to CNN Philippines for the presidential debate at 5 p.m.
You're watching the Filipino Votes Vice Presidential Debate 2022 right here at the University of Santo. Again, thank you so much, USC. And thank you to Very Reverend Father Richard Ang, the rector of USC. After the break, we'll shift our focus to our most precious resource, our children. How do we keep educating and protecting them? We'll be right back. Stay with us. This is a CNN Philippines special presentation, the Filipino Votes Vice Presidential Debate 2022, right here at the University of Santo Tomas. I'm Ruth Cabal.
And here with us on stage are 7 out of the 9 vice presidential candidates. I'm Rico Hizon.
The UNICEF reported that since the pandemic was declared, we have seen an increase in children who have been left hungry, isolated, abused, and anxious. In addition, the pandemic has caused the most severe education disruption in the world. Dito po natin nakita yung isang problema sa bansa natin, yung gap, yung pagitan sa rich and poor students, lalo na pagdating sa internet access. Ang question natin, as Vice President, how can you make sure that the internet is more accessible and more affordable to the students? We want to hear from Dr. Willie Ong.
Yes, salamat sa question, Ruth. Talaga itong education talaga pinaka-problema natin kasama yung sa internet. Nakakalungkot talaga po yung mga datos sa mga bata natin, 33% malnourished or stunted, yung maliit ang height. Dati ang data, 50% may bulati sa tiyan. Paano mag-aaral kung anemic? 10,000 na bata namamatay bawat taon sa diarrhea. Maruming tubig, walang pang ospital. Kaya yung access sa internet, may plano kami ni Mayor Isko dyan sa fiber optic na gagawin niya. Pagdating sa school, ano problema natin? Bullying. Nako, sa Twitter natin ngayon, baka marami na nag-away. Philippines, 45% ang bullying. Sa ibang bansa, 8% lang. Kaya kita nyo naman internet natin. Isa pa, ito medyo hindi alam ito na kababayan natin. 31% lang ang growth mindset sa Pilipino. Isabihin, yung isip niya, kaya niya maging mataas. Yung kaya mangarap, mababa tayo doon. Budget sa education, itataas natin. Sweldo ng teachers, grade 11 lang. Sa Maynila, ang dami tinayo ni Mayor Isko. Hospital, libreng tablet sa students, 20 gigs, 1,000 kada buwan binibigay. Mental health, linya ko po yan. Talagang tututukan ko yan kasi walang libre dito sa Pilipinas. Mahal pag nagkasakit sa depression, bipolar at iba pa.
Senate President Tito Soto, your views on more accessibility and affordability of the internet to students.
There is much to be desired in sa kilos ng Executive Department pagdating dito. Because nung tinatalakay namin yung budget para sa 2022, ang DICT nangangailangan ng mga 18 billion para sa improvement ng broadband. At para maisaayos nationwide at libre para sa ating mga kababayan. Ang napasa at ang pinayagan ng DBM, 800,000 18 billion yung kailangan 800,000 Tinanong ko nga Senator Unasan, I know this because Senator Lacson is the one handling the budget of the DICT. Ano? And then, tinanong namin si Senator Nasan, ano magagawa niyo ng 800,000? Wala daw. Yun ang isang problema. Now, as far as the educational freedom of the institutions are concerned, I am all for it. Meron lang akong gusto idagdag sa educational system natin. Dapat yung grade 5, grade 6, grade 7, meron drug abuse resistance education program. Pagtungtong nila ng 13 years old, alam na nila, masama yung droga, masisira ang buhay ko dyan, masisira ang pamilya ko, masisira ang kinabukasan ko. Ganun dapat yan eh. We will be saving more than 50% of these young boys na sila ay malulung dyan. Kung nandun na kaagad yung drug abuse resistance education program natin.
May we hear from Senator Kiko Pangilinan?
Yung Robredo-Pangilinan tandem ay mayroong plano para sa edukasyon. Immediately, pag-upo, yung 90 billion, isang gadget bawat estudyante, isa yan, para talagang mabigyan ng sapat na suporta. Pangalawa, 300 pesos Wi-Fi load allowance kada isang buwan habang siya ay nag-aaral. So 90 billion yan immediately. Pero ang matinding problema din na dapat tugunan ay yung malnutrition ng ating mga anak. Paano ka mag-aaral ng maayos kung kumakalamang sikmura mo? Sabi nga, 95 young people are dying every day, our children, because of malnutrition. At yun ang ating kinakailangan gawin. Because we are food insecure. Yung stunting. Bakit stunting? Bakit maliliit? Bakit hindi lumalaki? Kulang ang nutrisyon, kulang ang timbang, kulang ang tangkad. Kinakailangan talaga tugunan yung food security. At paano natin gagawin yan? Dodoblehin ang budget ng agrikultura at titriplehin ang tiyak na yung dagdag na budget, madadagdagan ng ayuda at suporta sa ating mga magsasaka at mangingisda para tumaas ang kanilang ani at tumaas ang kanilang huli at pagka marami ng supply ng pagkain sa ating merkado, bababa ang presyo ng pagkain. Yun nga, hello pagkain, goodbye gutom.
And this is a question for Mr. Serapio. UNICEF has also found that the Philippines is the epicenter of the live stream sexual abuse trade. Research found a 265% spike in online sexual abuses between March and May 2020. As Vice President, we want to know what difference can you make to protect our children against online abuse? Mr. Serapio, of 90 seconds.
Ang magagawa po natin dyan ay paggamit din po ulit ng teknolohiya para iyan ay ating ma-monitor ng mabuti. Ngayon po, gusto ko rin lamang pong sabihin, dahil ang pinag-uusapan lagi nga ay yung mga bilyon-bilyon na i-appropriate natin. Meron po bang na-allocate na pondo para sa ganitong mga programa? Kung wala po, kinakailangan pag-isipan kung saan kukunin yan doon sa mga ibinigay na pondo. Dahil ang bawat programa, kailangan ng pondo. At ang lahat ng papasok na bagong manunungkulan sa susunod na administrasyon, ang kanilang gagamitin ay yung napondoan na sa General Appropriations Act o na budget na. Kaya po, doon sa tanong ulit, kakailanganin po talaga niyan ng teknolohiya para na sa ganon ma-monitor ng gusto itong nangyayari po ng mga yan. Meron po niyan na ganyan technology kaagad. Napakabilis pong makita niyan.
Criminals also took advantage of the growing number of Filipinos doing financial transactions online. The Credit Card Association of the Philippines said credit card fraud surged by 21% since the pandemic started in 2020. Tighter regulations on SIM card registration is now one step away from becoming a law. This question is for Rizalito David. How will you crack down on criminals, cyber criminals, and safeguard the people's personal information? Mr. David.
Well, the law is already in place. It just have to be implemented properly.
Why do you think it's not being implemented properly?
Perhaps there's yung kakulangan nga ng political will and yung desire natin to really help out, no? Yung ating kapwa para maiwasan yung mga ganyang bagay. Wala na akong ibang maisasagot doon eh. Dahil nandiyan na yung batas eh. Nasa executive department na lang yan kung paano nila gagawin. Ano? I don't know if some of them are even involved in these things. That's why nakakalusot. No? Ang dali lang naman yan eh. Even yung cyber sex, no? Kontrolado natin yung mga ISPs. Bakit hindi yung bakit hindi yun minomonitor maigi ng ating gobyerno? Lahat naman dadaan sa ISPs, di ba? So, bakit nangyayari pa rin ito? No? So, posibleng merong kontsabahan dahil malaking pera ang involved dyan. Paminsan-minsan naguhulihan. Pero on the whole, pera yung pinag-uusapan. Corruption pa rin yung pinupuntahan nitong question na ito. No?
And Manny Lopez, your views on cybercriminality and safeguarding people's personal information.
Yes, being a technology management professional for several decades, I think a real problem is competence, technical competence. Our implementers, our policymakers are not really keen or properly equipped on the matter of technologies and management. To cite you one very concrete example, right in DICT, I concur with the observations of the industry that we need better leadership, more technically equipped, and really experienced on the area of technology management. But unfortunately, this is not the case. And so cybercrime is proliferating in the same manner that financial technologies is increasing. As a matter of fact, the application of financial technologies has been embraced because of the circumstances that we were in during the time of pandemic. And so accordingly, there was a corresponding increase in cybercrime because of the lack of proper guidelines, the lack of proper monitoring, and it bottoms down on the lack of competence. Ayusin po natin yan because the future is in information technology.
Ayan, Rico, ang dami na nating narinig from our vice presidential candidates. And we have one final question after the break. This is a CNN Philippines special presentation, the Filipino Votes Vice Presidential Debate 2022, right here at the University of Santo Tomas. Stay with us.
You are joining us live at the Quadricentennial Pavilion at the University of Santo Tomas. And we have one question left for our candidates, which will serve as our closing statement in this CNN Philippines Vice Presidential Debate. I'm Rico Hizon.
And I'm Ruth Cabal, and here is our final question, which will serve as your closing statement. The Constitution states that in case of death, permanent disability, or resignation of the President of the Philippines, the Vice Presidential Act as Chief Executive. Question, candidates, are you ready to assume the presidency should an emergency happen? And what would that leadership look like? We start the question with Senator Soto kasi kanina nung intro we started with Congressman Bello. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I have built consensus with 23 republics as President of the Senate for almost 4 years. We believe in our competence, experience, and I think we will be guided well, not only by the good Lord, but of course the experience that they've built within 30 years. Meron po kaming qualities na pinag-uusapan ni Senator Lacson na dala-dala namin dito sa eleksyon na ito. 3 K, katapatan, kakayahan, katapangan. With this, I believe we will lead by example. Thank you.
Carlos Serapio, it's your turn.
By God's grace, I submit that I will be ready to assume the presidency should the occasion arise. I have thought a lot about presenting myself as a candidate in this coming election. I discerned, I reflected, I prayed. And I came to the conclusion that the 50 years of experience that I had been blessed to be part of the advocacy work of the just ordering of society will serve me in good stead. Should, again, I will be called to perform the duties of President. One can only do so with strength and courage if he depends on the source of all power. And that to me is the spirit of reason and the source of all reason, the source of all life, and that is God. So again, with the blessing of God, I think I am ready, willing, and able to be president of this country. Amen.
Senator Kiko Pangilinan.
Nung tinanggap ko yung hiling ng ating Vice President na si Lenny na maging Vice Presidential candidate niya, ako ay napaluha at nakita ng ating mga kababayan. Ang isang dahilan ay dahil nakita ko ang mabigat na tungkulin ng isang magiging Vice President at mabigat na mga problema ng ating bansa. Tinanggap ko yun dahil alam ko kung mahirap ang aming dadaanang kampanya, mas mahirap ang naging dinadaanan ng marami nating mga kabayan na matayan, walang trabaho, ginugutom. Sa pagkakataong yun, titiyakin natin, uunahin natin yung mga nasa laylayan, yung mga mahihirap nating mga kababayan. Bata pa lang akong abogado, ako na ay nagbibigay ng libreng serbisyong legal sa ating mga kababayan. Biko nga, isang bilaong biko ang bayad sa akin ng mga manggagawa. Hanggang sa ngayon, mga magsasaka at mangingisda ang ating ipinaglalaban dahil sila ang kapos. Hindi makatarungan na kung sino pa ang nagpapakain sa atin, sila ang gutom. Hindi katanggap-tanggap na ang isang tatangmeg na nakilala ko, 87 years old, nagsasaka pa, baon pa sa utang. That is an injustice that is not acceptable, and that's the kind of leadership that they can rely on us and Vice President Leni Robredo. Uunahin yung mga kapos. Maraming salamat.
Dr. Willie Ong, handa po ba kayong humalili bilang presidente, and what would that leadership look like?
Salamat, Ruth. Ako po isang doktor, internist, and cardiologist. Mahirap po maging cardiologist eh. Kami ang tumitingin sa code blue. Pag may namatay, pag may nagloko yung puso ng pasyente, we have to decide in 10 seconds, ito ba ang gamot? Ito, isang pagkakamali ko, pwede siyang mabuhay o mamatay. Yun stressful, pero sanay ako sa ganon. Dito sa gobyerno, marami kang advisor, pwede ka pa maghintay ng 1 linggo bago mag-decide. So tuloy-tuloy yung polisiya na plano ng aming program ni Mayor Isko. Meron kaming bilis kilos, 10-point program. Madalas for the past 4 months, ito po yung ginagawa namin. So tutuloy lang po natin to. Ako po ay isang doktor, 27 years. Libre ang serbisyo sa ating kababayan. Alam niyo, wala akong kaaway dito. Pwede naman tumakbo sa politika, walang kaaway. At sabihin ko na lang po, wala po akong campaign funds. Hindi ako tumatanggap sa kahit sinong negosyante. Kung tsatsamba tayo maging presidente, di makaka-decide ako ng napakaganda. Kung ano yung mga decision nyo sa West Philippine Sea, sa mining, yun ang magiging decision ko. Kasi walang humahawak sa akin. Kaya ko tumakbo, Facebook lang, at sa tulong at pagmamahal ninyo. Dito ako magsaserve kung saan nyo po kayo ilalagay. Maraming salamat po. Mahal na mahal ko po kayo. God bless po sa ating lahat.
Next, we have Mr. Manny Lopez.
Ako lang po ang kandidato para Vice Presidente na walang ka-official tandem na presidente. But I will fully commit to support the best, most qualified, and committed presidential candidate who will serve the interest and welfare of our people. I was tasked by the Labor Party leadership to seek the vice presidency in our collective effort to help rebuild the economy, address this unprecedented crisis, come up with proper solutions that will effect real change and reform, build a strong, just, and a progressive nation to help make lives better for our long-suffering people. Ako po bilang isang ekonomista at management professional, we came up with a 10-point socio-economic development and political reform agenda to help uplift the lives of our people. And bilang vice presidential candidate ng Labor Party, ako po ay handa na maglingkod sa ating sambayanan upang maitawid natin itong ating mga suliranin na haharapin sa mga darating na panahon. Salamat po.
Rizalito David, are you ready to assume the presidency should an emergency happen, and what would that leadership look like?
We are destined to greatness. Yan po ang pangarap ng Diyos para sa atin, subalit hindi nangyayari dahil may mga tao na pinipigilan na mangyari ang mga bagay na yan. Ako po ay pinanganak sa Tondo, doon lumaki, nag-aral sa pamantasan ng Pilipinas sa Los Baños. Nagtrabaho po ako na matagal sa Senado. Kasabayan ko pa nga po itong dalawa sa ating mga senador. Ang diferensya, hindi ako senador, sila senador, ako staff, pero mas marami kaming ginagawa. Yung preparasyon ko po ay narariyan. No? Hinihintay lang po ang pagkakataon. Kung yan po ay babagsak sa akin, tatanggapin ko po ng buong lugod at isasagawa ang mga bagay na dapat gawin para sa ating bayan. Katulad ng aking nasabi, we are destined to greatness. And we only need leaders to do this for us. Well, together with the people and share this vision. Kailangan natin ng malinaw na direksyon. At ano ba ang vision ng leader na yon? Malinaw na po sa akin yan, naisulat ko na po yan doon sa aking tinatawag na rebuild. At pinakita ko pa nga po kanina doon sa mga staff ng CNN kung ano itong sinulat ko na ito. Ako po'y nakahanda para sa ganyang pagkakataon. Marami pong salamat.
Walden Bello.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to CNN for this opportunity. Yes, I'll be ready to assume, but I really wanted to air some of my problems. You know, Sara Duterte is not here. They were watching us, you know, fighting one another. And she was not here to reveal her program because she has no program for the people. All she has is this mandatory military bill that would add 2 more years sa ating mga kababayan. 18-year-olds, they're trying to get out. No? I mean, we need Sara Duterte and Marcos to come and reveal themselves to the people. No? And that is why I don't like dumping on Senator Soto or Senator Pangilinan. No? I mean, really, you know, I think the main problem that we face is the Marcos-Duterte tandem. No? And I think that they just spat on the face of the Filipino people, telling them, you're not worth my giving you our programs because they have fucking no programs. Okay? So, let me just end with that. You know, if I don't care what a number of people say, but I feel very strongly about the absence of these 2 idiots in this event. Thank you, CNN.
Candidates, we would like to thank you for your very generous time and for revealing to the Filipino people, sa buong sambayanan, ang inyong plataforma at programa kung kayo ang magiging vice-presidente ng Pilipinas. And after any debate, people often ask, who won? Who stood out? And who is the most qualified? So tell us what you think via the CNN Philippines digital platforms.
At marami na nga tayong reactions ngayon sa Twitter and Facebook. So to our audience, keep them coming. We want to hear from you. Alam mo, Rico, kasi yung mga ganitong debate, magandang pagkakataon talaga ito para makilala ang ating mga kandidato at marinig silang lahat. And again, we want to thank our candidates.
And gusto rin natin pasalamatan ang ating virtual audience who joined us for this Vice Presidential Debate 2022.
And of course, thank you very much to our host, the University of Santo Tomas.
Maraming salamat po.
Let's call in our candidates in alphabetical order. Former Akbayan Party List Representative Walden Bello. Please join us. Pro-life advocate Rizalito David.
Economist Manny S.D. Lopez.
Dr. Willie Ong, a cardiologist and social media personality.
Senator Francis Kiko Pangilinan.
Lawyer Carlos Serapio.
And Senate President Tito Soto.
Maraming salamat po sa ating mga kandidato. Ako po si Ruth Cabal.
And I am Rico Hizon. Join us again tomorrow. We're 9 out of the 10 presidential candidates will be here, right here on the stage at the Quadricentennial Pavilion at the University of Santo Tomas to answer your questions. 5 to 7 p.m. Thank you for watching this CNN Philippines special presentation.
The Filipino Votes Vice Presidential Debate 2022.